It's a Thursday edition of Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us. We're counting the hours to the end of the week. But a big thing happened, a big announcement. We did tell you about the meeting that happened with the president and the former Minister of Power, as it was seen. But information reaching us is that the Minister of Power, Adelabu, has resigned to pursue his desire to run for office. We'll be bringing these details in a moment. My name is Olive MOD. I want to say a big thank you to Mazino and to Chiwete, who have held the fort with me in the past 2 days. But it gives me great joy to announce that one half of the duo is back. Welcome, Joe. Why are you wearing pink tie? Why did you copy me, man?
Are you sure you're not?
I just noticed it now.
Okay, I just noticed it too. I never knew. I mean, shout out to Mazino Appeal and shout out to Chiwetel. I always call him Chiwetel Ejofo.
Chiwetel Lago.
Why?
At least your own is Chiwetel.
Okay,
mine is Chiwetel Lago. And the one that sang or that inspired songs like Ekwenswe Romance Ya Mami Water.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay, all right.
Stuff like that.
I can imagine.
Welcome back, Joe. Hope you feel much better.
Thanks. Well, it's good to be back. Like I said, thanks to the guys. It's been a great conversation, no doubt. The conversation you had with the Commissioner of Police, Lagos State, I mean, that story is one that's also trending. Not forgetting to, yesterday you had spoken to the, we can call him the aspirant, Kwara State, also looking forward to be part of the political space. And they're very interesting topics all the way from Monday. And guess what? The stories have not ended yet. There are more news. The federal government is planning to borrow 700 billion naira, you know, and...
How much is money?
There's a lot going on, 700 billion naira. There's also the case of the PDP. Its secretary now facing serious challenges, which inadvertently also affects INEC, because INEC had already taken his name, accepted and everything after their convention and put it on the website. People are saying, if you're so quick to do that,
why did you do differently for ADC?
So the INEC chair, too, the big story has not left the scene. The INEC chair, Professor Josh Amopita, the so-called X-saga is still on, you know.
It is on. And then there's also in Ibadan, in Oyo State, where we hear that Adelabu has resigned. The question is, who will be the anointed candidate? In fact, let's get into the story proper and then share our thoughts. But I must mention that we're streaming live on YouTube, News Central TV Live, where we take comments. So please hurry to YouTube to drop your comment regarding any of our stories. We'll be starting off with our first story this morning. Nigeria's Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has formally resigned from his position in the Federal Executive Council to pursue his governorship ambition in Oyo State ahead of the 2027 elections. The resignation, confirmed on Wednesday, follows weeks of speculation over Adelabu's political plans and consultations within the presidency. Adelabu's decision comes despite an earlier March 31 deadline set by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for political appointees seeking elective office to resign. The now former minister said his resignation was necessary to allow him to dedicate time and resources to the Oyo governorship race, marking a transition from federal responsibilities to state-level politics. His exit comes at a critical time where Nigeria's power sector continues to face challenges such as greed, instability, supply shortfalls, and tariff controversies. You see there on the screen is the official letter of resignation. This is also a minister that at some point went viral because he was a minister of power, yet he had a power bank at an event. And there's also been, you know, Nigerians reacting, a number of them, negatively to his time in office, because some would argue that the power situation hasn't improved as it should be. But let's take a look at him, you know, apologizing, taking accountability, and see if that counts for something. We'll be right back to share our thoughts about his resignation.
Minister of Power, that for this temporary issue that is leading to hardship being experienced, especially during this dry season, where there is so much heat everywhere, where businesses are also being affected, where schools have been affected, where industries have been affected. It is not our wish to find ourselves in this situation, but it's some factors that's actually beyond our control. But we are not relenting. We are working on it 24/7 to make sure that we go back to the trend, to the trajectory of 2025, whereby you praised us, whereby you commended us for a good job well done. And we can imagine if we could provide such service in 2025, this is 2026, this is when we'll be willing to even do more, to even do better as we are close to the election year. So, except that we cannot help it, that's why we find ourselves here. But I can assure you that in the next few weeks, all this will be over. Power generation will improve, transmission will improve, distribution will improve, and that 6,000 megawatts will be achieved before the end of this year, and Nigerians will be better for it. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have the minister there, just promising you Nigerians that don't worry. He asked for 2 weeks, and he was certain that by the second week, power will be restored fully. He also called it a temporary issue. But the major conversation here is the fact that there you have a minister of power who seemed to speak from a point of assurance. He was telling you, Nigerians, that don't worry, everything is going to work out fine. But little did we know that it was just a statement that was being made in the interim, because the minister had plans to resign. But so many questions are coming up. One of the questions simply is, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had issued a statement to office holders, especially those who have been appointed, that they had until March 31st to ensure that they resigned if they were seeking elected office. And we did see a resignation come from different portfolios of ministers, especially coming from, especially ministers from the current administration. But we're expecting that Adelabu would also be part of it. But then again, the former CBN deputy governor wasn't part of those who resigned. Rather, it came out with that video you just saw. And in expectation, Nigerians would have wondered if this possibility of him speaking tough proved that he wasn't going to resign. But guess what? His resignation, and as we hear, actually details the fact that it's linked to April 30th / 31st. Well, you could say 30th because that's exactly when he looked forward to resign. So what happened to March 31st deadline that the president had given? Aside that, there's so many things to look into all of this conversation. Let's start off first with what the minister will be remembered for.
Yes.
And whether we like it or not, we can look at the positives at the same time look at the negatives. Let me take some time to look at these two very briefly. One is that, yes, the minister would have been commended or would be commended for having ensured that the Electricity Act 2023, which was indeed started by the former late President Muhammadu Buhari, was actually put into play. And that's why there was a need for decentralization. State governors and all states were able to develop their own power as well. So he came into power, took office rather, and ensured that this act was indeed also implemented. So that was very key. That was one success that you look at the minister for doing. Another one simply would be that he tried as much as possible, even though there's a divide with the bands, came up with a band A, B, C, and Nigerians were not buying that. But some people said, hey, as long as I have power, I am going to pay. But the bigger challenges continue to wait for the minister, and this includes the Gencos. Whether we like it or not, we would also remember that the Gencos, be it the Shiroro, the Egba, Transcorp, name them. These Gencos had issues, and the issues were very stern. They were strong. They were not able to actually supply enough power, especially to the discos. And part of the reason was what actually ended with the minister having left office recently is the fact that the federal government was also owing the Gencos. We saw the figure 6.6 trillion naira, of which there was a back and forth, and there was discrepancy in terms of communication with when these monies will be paid. However, just last month, the president said he was going to pay 3.3 trillion naira to the Gencos, and directly because of the issue of gas supply. The Gencos are not able to supply power if there's no gas, and this gas supplier said, listen, we're not going to give you gas any longer because you are owing, we're in debt. And the Gencos said, listen, this debt is not helping us to supply power to the discos. However, that's not even all. The major issue now came when the president said, okay, that's fine, we're going to clear off 3.3 trillion naira. And then people asked, even the Genco says, sorry, excuse us, where did that 3.3 trillion naira emanate from? How were you able to arrive at 3.3 trillion naira? That's a big question they asked. Then the discos, which is also a big problem. You do have state discos also struggling to ensure that they are able to distribute power whenever they get it. There's the issue of infrastructure. Right. And then the final nail on the coffin, I don't know if we have that video, where the president was speaking during the
campaign season.
No, during the federal, yes, the campaign season is there. Then during the executive council meeting where they met, the president actually threw the bulk of the blame on the power sector on the previous administrations. And if you date back, we're talking about as far back as the Obasanjo administration, where there was very serious privatization that went on, especially under the vice president, you could talk about, apart from President Obasanjo's administration, you know, sometimes I wonder, there was another administration, then another administration, but for the president to say, let's go back, it was as a result of poor privatization that has put us in this situation. I don't know if we have that video, where the president also said that during the executive council, during the meeting, where he sat down and then made that remark and said, listen, as a power sector, this is what we're going through, and we're going through this because of these issues. He made mention of that. But, Olive, as I wrap up, whether we like it or not, what will be the impact of the, in quotes, we can now use the word former Minister of Power on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration going forward and his second-term campaign? Because, like the video we do know about, where he said, if I don't give you power, don't vote for me for second term.
All right. Very thorough, detailed analysis there, and thank you very much for, kickstarting on that note. There are too many things to talk about. I'm trying to, decide where to start with. There are so many things that Adebayo Adelabu will be remembered for. Like Joe said, there's the good side and the bad side. Even though some would argue about the authenticity to the good side, let me start with the most recent, being that this year we had, for the first time ever, 6,003 megawatts we were able to generate in the early, no, this wasn't even this year, it was early 2025 actually, 6,003 megawatts, and that was the highest. And many argued that the question is that really highest that can be used, or is it, the use or the term, the highest capacity we've ever generated came into argument. First of all, let's put in context that as a nation, we need about 30,000 megawatts to be able to power our electricity. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to generate anything close to that. There are too many things in terms of the band. There was criticism as to the fact that electricity should not be a privilege. Power should not be a privilege. It should be a right that every Nigerian has, not a situation where the affluent or the privileged few have access to. For example, in other climes, and I know that some will say maybe it's unfair to do this analysis and compare with other climes, but there is power. Whether you can afford it or not is an issue, but there is constant power, right? But it's not an issue that you have to think about. Here in Nigeria, power became a prayer point. But if we were to analyze the Minister of Power's time in office, talking about the incessant grid collapses, at some point, it became a thing. 2024 had about 8 grid collapses. You look at 2024, 2025, and even 2026, you count all these grid collapses, and you ask yourself, will there be enough to taint his reputation in the area of running for office? Still speaking about power, his exit now leaves a vacuum in the Ministry of Power. So who becomes the next Minister of Power? What criteria are we using to select him? Are we looking at somebody who actually has an interest in fixing Nigeria's power problems? Do we have someone who has the capability to fix Nigeria's power challenges? News from the grapevine and other critics of this administration have argued that Adebayo Adelabu, being appointed Minister of Power, was training for him to come back into office at some point. Recall that this desire or ambition to run for office did not start today. He ran for office under the APC in 2019 and lost to Seyi Makinde. He ran again in 2023 with the Accord Party. He came third. And now he wants to run again. The question is, will the people of Oyo State welcome him? Is he popular amongst them? Another issue to point out is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave a deadline. He said, that by the 31st of March, everyone should resign. Everyone who runs to office. Now, is that deadline selective? Are there people that this deadline applies to and those that the deadline does not apply to? If other people come out to say they want to run, will they also be given the preferential treatment that Adebayo Adelabu was given? And what was the essence of the preferential treatment? Was this extra time given for him to fix power? And if yes, what was he able to do within that extra time? Also, the reports regarding his resignation have it that he got the president's blessings to be able to run for office, and he will now run. Does the president's blessing convert to automatic endorsement in Oyo State? Bear in mind, the incumbent, Seyi Makinde, has not shared what his or who his preferred candidate is.
Seyi Makinde has over like 10.
He hasn't actually said who it is. What he said is he's waiting for the Supreme Court case, for the court case regarding the PDP, that once that is sorted, that he will then announce it. But there are many key people in the state who have names. Like key people who, are popular. I'm going to read a few of them. There's the Commissioner for Education, Nureni Adeniran. There's the Chief of Staff, Shego Ogunyi. There is former Deputy Governor and current PDP National Chairman, Sao Taofiq Arakpaja. There's the House of Assembly Speaker, Adebo Ogundoyin, and federal lawmaker representing Ibadan Northwest, Ibadan Southwest, Adedeji Stanley Olajide, among several others. So we don't know who Seyi Makinde has shown or thrown his support to, and we cannot deny the power of incumbency. In Nigeria, it's a thing where the incumbent wields some measure of influence over the process and who he gives his man to. So does President Tinubu's blessing of the minister convert to approval and endorsement by the Oyo people, by the electorate in Oyo? I think these are some areas to point out.
Having looked at his antecedents and what he has been able to cover in the past 3 years under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, if you look at it from a political angle as well, there's also a big question that everyone is asking, Olive. And that question simply is, there is Senator Sharafaddin Ali of the APC who has gotten the blessings of half a faction, if you want to call it faction, since everything is factionalized now, of the APC. He's gotten the blessings of
a crop.
I mean, he's gotten the blessings of the hierarchy of the APC members in Oyo State. Sharafaddin Ali recently also had an event where he had invited very key stakeholders within the APC, and everyone came and he spoke out loud and said, listen, I've been representing the North Senatorial District of Oyo State. I've gone to the South, former secretary, name it, whatever. He has all of this portfolio, and he feels that, listen, he has spoken to the chieftains and he has spoken to a few persons, especially the traditional rulers, the people of Oyo State, and they said, hey, we're throwing our weight behind you. Now, this is where it gets even more, tougher in between. If a senator, Sharafaddin Ali, has gotten the support of the APC members, okay, you now have a minister of power who is leaving an already appointed portfolio to jump into the ring. The question is, under what party? Of course, we do understand that there will be primaries. Yes, okay, who are they going to select here and there? But what if the Minister of Power eventually loses and doesn't even make it? Well,
he will try again. And first, if you don't succeed, dust yourself up and try again. Atiku is on his how many try? So we can't tell him.
I mean, these are dicey situations. But talking about power, I did allude to the video of the Federal Executive Council meeting as well. But let's take a look at that video.
You have leaders who had privatized electricity that is not working. They gave us darkness and despair. And we are trying to get ourselves through that to build a nation of bright hope and joyful people and leave our children with a life worthy.
Whichever way by all means necessary, you must have electricity. And you will not pay for estimated bill anymore. A promise made will be a promise kept. If I can't keep the promise and I come back for second term, don't vote for me. That's the truth. Unless I give you adequate reasons why I couldn't deliver.
So currently, as we speak, everyone is holding on to that final statement. Unless I give you adequate reasons why. And part of the adequate reasons many have alluded is in the first video you saw, where the president said the privatization of Nigeria's electricity has put the country where it is, and he's trying to take the country to where it should be. Is this enough reason for one to say, but you make the statement first that if you don't give it to us, we shouldn't vote for you? And secondly, the minister's resignation has a strong impact on that statement. That
so the two questions that come to mind readily as a result of this video is, one, the new Minister of Power that will be appointed has between now and January 2028.
December.
Okay, let's say December. Between now and December 2026, rather, to fix electricity. Is that enough time to fix the power sector in Nigeria? That's one. Now, if they're unable to fix it, are we going back to power becoming another campaign issue at the next elections? If President Tinubu comes, if he comes back again for a second term, are we going to see them tell us again that Nigerians should not vote him if he doesn't fix the power problem? These are the issues that we'll look at. But let's take comments on YouTube. Then we will head to X to see what Nigerians are saying about it. On YouTube, Mr. Johnson says, Mr. Adelabu, the son of Adelabu Penkelemesi, never delivered on his promise on giving us stable electricity, and yet he wants to go for the highest office in one of the states in Nigeria. Prince Ajibade says, it no go better for anybody we clap for that place. Now me talk him.
Why is he angry?
He's angry. He saw where in one of the videos, I think it was Adelabu had said something and then everybody was clapping.
Yeah.
He was angry. Nigerians, and I can understand.
And
we shouldn't be happy.
And we need to talk about this clapping.
Do you know that whenever I travel abroad, that is the one thing that makes me sad? Because, so the two things that make me sad, that make me think, it's so much better here, is the fact that you're not thinking about power situation. And transport is great. In the UK, for example, you know, I can say to you, Joe, I'll see you for 1 p.m. because I've checked the trains and I know what time the train will depart, what time the train will arrive. You can plan your life. We don't have all of that here. Our traffic, not like they don't have traffic, but you can find a way to navigate through that. So anyway, I understand the frustration. Michael Zu says, don't blame Adelabu, blame Tinubu, who appointed an accountant as Minister of Power. As for your people, if you like, collect rice and vote Adelabu. Just know that you are inviting darkness upon your state. Olaiton Ishola says, we can go from having a Sheyi Makinde as governor to Adelabu, who couldn't fix power. Media Judge says, Adelabu as a minister that could not perform wants to pursue a career as governor. He won't do anything as a governor. He should go and start a councillor from his hometown. Prince Ajibade says, he won't be remembered for anything good. I pay so much for electricity that I don't see. What is band A, B, C, D, E in a single country? Don't we all have rights to electricity? Valid question. Olaiton Ishola says, you didn't mention the name of Sheyi Makinde's top pick, who is Bimbo Adekombi, who was Abiola Ajimobi's commissioner for finance. So the truth is, when they asked, in a recent newsletter, and they asked him, he said he doesn't have a top pick yet. He will announce at the end of May. He's waiting for the Supreme Court's pronouncement regarding the PDP. So he will announce, and then he will say what party they are going to run under or whatever.
Yeah.
OA says it is true the privatization was not done properly, but President Tinubu is in charge now, so he should correct the mistake. He is not serious. What a country. Someone says I jumped his message. Please, what message did I jump? I can't find it. Kindly resend the message. I'll come back to take some more comments. James, please redrop the comment. I can't find it. I'll come back to take some more comments on YouTube, but let's head to X and see what Nigerians are saying on X. I can't believe this man still wants to seriously contest for governor. after failing woefully as a minister of power, and yet you want to contest for governor again, to come and do what exactly? Where do Nigerian politicians get their audacity from? Oyindamola asks. Power sector snapshot, Adebayo Adelabu era. Nigeria's installed capacity 13,000 megawatt. Average daily generation 3,500 to 4,500 megawatt. Peak generation period high 5,800 megawatt. Grid collapses recorded between 2023 to 2025, 10 plus incidents. Estimated electrification rate 55 to 60%. Power deficit affecting 200 million plus population. Key focus during tenure, metering gaps, millions still unmetered, tariff adjustments and subsidy debates, efforts to stabilize national grid. And the quoted source being NERC, National Grid Data, and industry reports. Wow. Okay, let's have some more.
Minister of Power, he says Adebayo Adelabu, arguably one of the worst in Nigeria's history, recently resigned to contest for governor of Oyo State. The same man who introduced the numbers ban ABCD electricity policy, which left many Nigerians in darkness and many paying more for unreliable power, now wants to govern an entire state? I genuinely don't understand this country anymore. Where is the boldness coming from? That's what she says. Azubike says, I hope it's for real this time. The man has been too scared to do anything, including giving Nigeria power. That's Azubike Osumili, who happens to be a friend. All right, it's Shoshana, says you have served with utmost professionalism and integrity. Nigerians are proud of your service and contributions. We will not forget the meaningful impact you made in the power sector. Wishing you continued success in your next chapter. That's a positive one. But then again, just to wrap things up, whether we like it or not, the Minister of Power has made up his mind. He's going straight for that governorship seat, and he's ready to do what he needs to do. So he's left the reins, and hopefully the president will be able to fill up that seat and get the right person. But let me say this here as we move to our next story. Whether we like it or not, even if you have a new Minister of Power, we'll still have grid collapses. That's a fact. So let's just state it here. That's what I believe, and that's what I think I know. Because Nigeria's infrastructure regarding electricity is so archaic and so old. But I think when the president was making that statement, and I just want to say this here as well, I think politicians should stop with coming out to mention 10 things they're going to do. I've said it here many times. Just have a 2-point agenda in your 4 years or 3-point agenda and do it well. So if you want to focus on the 2-point, you can just say, I'm going to focus on power, which is electricity. I'm going to focus on the health sector. Let's know that education, we'll try, neither here nor there. But you see those two, you're going to do them 100% well, so that if you're leaving, at the end of the day, everybody will be like, oh, okay, this is fantastic.
At least you did one.
Because the power sector, you have to change, you have to break the infrastructure, you have to build new ones.
And we agree that the problem with our power sector did not start with this administration. We all agree, before they bring that as a defense, that it was a problem that started way before them. However, they were not unaware. Why they cannot be totally blamed? They cannot be completely excused because you were very aware of what you were getting into.
One.
You made several commitments as to what you were going to achieve.
Two.
And as opposed to meeting those commitments, you are now setting wins and then jumped out midway to go and run for office.
3, and then 4, you've been in power for the past 11 years and counting. There's nothing. Well, and when we say this about ideology, Olive, ideology of a party consists of the tenets, the agreement that guides that party in executing either of its plans. So take, for instance, if the former president, okay, had said, okay, let's work on power, and then he worked on it, it's a continuum. It's a continuum. But let's go to our next story.
Sorry, can I just wrap up with one line that just came to my mind?
What's it?
The Minister of Power is running for power because he enjoys being in power. Drops mic. All right, let's now move on.
Anyway, this next story. Olive, I have no words for you. We're back. We need to ring this bell. We're back. Okay, our conscience is back.
All the best. We wish him all the best in his race.
All the best, Minister of Power.
Win.
All the best. I mean, all the best.
It's
a tough call, and we do hope that you sail through. The next story has got to do with the Nigerian Police Force. Now, the Nigerian Police Force this morning, as we speak to you, has confirmed the arrest and detention of a police officer accused of extorting a motorist in the Dimu area of Lagos State. The development followed a viral video shared online in which a driver alleged that he was stopped despite having complete vehicle documents and later pressured for money over a disputed claim about his car color. This is the funniest part of it. The car color grey or ash. According to the motorist, the officer insisted that the vehicle was grey instead of ash, as stated in the registration documents, and allegedly threatened the rest before demanding 30,000 naira, which was later negotiated to 10,000 naira. In a statement shared on X on Wednesday, let's tell you that the police confirmed that the officer involved has been identified, arrested, detained, and queried, adding that disciplinary procedures are indeed on the way. But watch this video for yourself and take a look.
Nigerian policemen yesterday at Idimo. If you're familiar with that area, you know where I'm talking about. It's directly opposite area Hem Command, and they have a police station, Idimo police station beside. So this officer asked me for my documents, which I presented to him. And after looking and checking, he called one of his colleagues and said they should check for him also, which they did. He returned the paper back to him, give another one, that one also check and give the paper back to him. After 30 minutes, he called me and he said, yeah, that was the color of my car, which you can see it in the documents. And we can both see it's ash color at the description of the document. He said, no, that the color of my car is not ash, that is gray. Now, why will I have an ash color written on my document and the color of my car is gray? I started, Haga, please don't bring out an excuse from this. All my documents are complete and no. He started chatting and saying, no, he's going to arrest me, he's going to delay me, I'm going inside the office and all. At the end of the day, he started negotiating. Yeah, started negotiating, telling me, because I told him I have a couple of things to do. You shouldn't just make nothing out of something out of this nothing stuff. He charged me 30,000 naira, which I told him I don't have. I told him I can't just pay. He said yes, he has to arrest me and take me inside. At the end of the day, I pleaded and he said the last he can take from me is 10,000 naira. I told him this is the only money I've been trying to make just for today. I went out because of this 10,000. You want to take it away from me? He didn't even care. So I told my boy to withdraw the money for him before he released me to go. I attach here the color of my paper. That's the color on my paper, which is ash. And also, this is the color of my car.
Ash versus grey. Dear Nigerian police, in case you missed the memo, we did have the Commissioner of Police here on Breakfast Central, live on News Central, and he warned against this. So take a look at this video and listen to what he also said.
Even while the police has the best of intentions, sometimes it can be thwarted by the bad eggs within the force. So in a way to curb this, some of the things Nigerians do is to film, to record scenarios. Is it a crime for a Nigerian citizen to record a police officer during stop and search?
No crime at all. When we know that what we are doing is the right thing, we are not. We don't entertain any fears of anybody recording us. You can record us. We can record you as well. It's on both sides. So we are not entertaining anything. Anybody can record any police officer at his duty post. In as much as the police officer is doing the right thing, he has nothing to fear about recording. So anybody can record us while we are carrying out our lawful duty.
And finally, as quickly as you can, to what extent does the stop and search get to? Because we've had scenarios of people's phones being searched, people's bank accounts being searched. Is that allowed? How should the stop and search take place?
It will not get to that level. Our men have been warned not to search any phone from any individual. We are there to search the vehicles. We are there to know who is inside the vehicle and to be assured that the people have boarded the right vehicle and not the vehicles of these hoodlums who will take them to the destination where they are not supposed to be.
So, I mean, this happened here on Breakfast Central, Olive, Mazzino, and Chiwetel. And the point is, it's high time that the Nigerian police force continues to ring the alarm on the police officers and let them know that we are in an era where cameras are installed in cars and they can be recorded.
Even with just your glasses.
They can be recorded.
This Joe's glasses is wearing it with smart glasses. I'm recording. You can easily be recording all of it.
Wristwatches are recording.
Wristwatch with your pen.
In the car, the steering, you could lock in your recording. There's so Nigerian police officers.
And I advise Nigerians, I think it's advisable for Nigerian motorists to have recording devices at this point, because it's one thing for the Commissioner of Police to say this, is another thing for us to see the practicality of it. But I think what's quite sad here is, first of all, what happened, manufacturing an ambiguity regarding something as basic as the color of the car, gray, ash. What really is the difference between that, right? Manufacturing some form of ambiguity as a result, as a means to extort Nigerian citizens, should be frowned upon. Now, reports have it that the police officer has been arrested. Kudos to the police. Yeah. We hope to see the follow-up to this scenario. But we must mention that I saw a Chatham House research in 2025 that ranked the Nigerian police force as the lowest. They say it has the lowest level of public trust among all the country's institutions. And videos like that don't, tell you why. It's not an isolated incident. This is not the first time that we've seen or heard of the police acting in such manner. So I would say, one, citizens need to arm themselves with information as to what is allowed and what isn't allowed. And when situations like this happen, we need to get to the point, I always say this, that we need to start publicly naming and shaming the corrupt officers, because there are good policemen. There are good policemen who are, every day putting themselves on the line to protect Nigerian citizens. And these bad eggs are the ones giving them a bad name. So when they have arrested someone like this, you put him out publicly. So-and-so person is no longer a member of the Nigerian police force as a result of so-and-so. Because the concern is that when we hear they have a court martial or they've been arrested, that the matter is swept away when public interest has died down, or that they reassigned. We've had cases here. We had the journalists to talk to us, a journalist from FIG, to talk to us about a case they had been following, a police officer who had extorted in Anambra State. Was he Anambra State? I can't remember now. But the report was that he was reassigned to another division because of the complaints. He was not fired. Until we start publicly shaming bad behavior, we'll continue to see this. But we will continue to take reactions. Let's take some reactions from YouTube and quickly take some on X. Media Judges says, the police force corruption cannot fully be curbed. They always extort citizens every day, and some extortion are not even on social media. We hope to see the Nigeria police force be fully sensitized. Let's head to X now and take some tweets regarding this as well. And our first tweet.
Our first tweet says, where is the leadership? This is a call to restore dignity and accountability within the force. Reports of extortion and police brutality are becoming a daily occurrence. This is unacceptable. The Nigerian police force, alongside all affiliated agencies, must implement continuous and mandatory professional training focused on ethics, human rights, and a clear understanding of the law. Officers must not only enforce the law, they must embody it. It is deeply disappointing to witness current state of policing. While the Honorable Minister of Interior and are delivering visible improvements within our airports, the same standard of reform is urgently needed within the police and wider security forces. So says that person. Well, another one, make them they show us how they arrest the guy.
Exactly.
There should be a follow-up, not just by words.
So maybe not just showing the arrest in terms of showing them behind the bars. Anyway, I'll speak to that, but finish.
I experienced the same thing by the same officer. Wasted 5 hours of my day and still collected 10K from us, you see? There you go.
Okay, so while we cannot show, we can't advocate that they show when the officer is being handcuffed and arrested, because regardless of what they do, there is a procedure and they have rights, and that should be followed. But again, the conversation about reforming the police cannot be talked about without talking about their welfare, which is why they are protesting and haven't gotten the support that they need from Nigerians. But that's a whole conversation for another day. Let's now share with you what our top stories are this morning on Breakfast Central. We'll talk about that some more much later, and please keep your comments coming. But this morning on Breakfast Central, our top stories. Adelabu resigns as Minister of Power to pursue Oyo governorship ambition despite the March 31st deadline. Supreme Court reserves judgment in ADC PDP leadership dispute. And moving to the FCT, the infrastructure, water pipe testing triggers chaos in Karu community. And then we'll be giving you an update about JAMB as they hold their first exam for visually impaired candidates in Abuja talking about inclusion. We'll also be reviewing the front pages of the papers as we do every morning. Stay tuned for all these and more.
Welcome back. Nigeria's power sector is once again in focus following the resignation of the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, who is now also spearheading a recommendation for coordinated Ministry of Energy. Recall that during his time in office, he at different points assured Nigerians to expect improved electricity supply within weeks, remarks that raised expectations at a time when the sector was already under pressure. But let's just remind ourselves of what he said. Take a look.
Coming from me as a Minister of Power, that for this temporary issue that is leading to hardship being experienced, especially during this dry season, where there is so much heat everywhere, where businesses are also being affected, where schools are being affected, where industries are being affected. It is not our wish to find ourselves in this situation, but it's some factors that's actually beyond our control. But we are not relenting. We are working on it 24/7 to make sure that we go back to the trend, to the trajectory of 2025, whereby you praised us, whereby you commended us for a good job well done. And we can imagine if we could provide such service in 2025, this is 2026, this is when we'll be willing to even do more, to even do better as we are close to the election year. So, except that we cannot help it, that's why we find ourselves here. But I can assure you that in the next few weeks, all this will be over. Power generation will improve, transmission will improve, distribution will improve, and that 6,000 megawatts will be achieved before the end of this year. And Nigerians will be better for it. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have him making those promises. Olive?
Indeed, there have been promises, and the question now is, did he keep to his own side of the promise, and how well did he help in achieving President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's vision for Nigeria's electricity sector? We now turn to public affairs analyst Jide Ojo to help us break this down further. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, Olive. Good morning.
Adebayo Adelabu has resigned as Minister of Power. What will he be remembered for? What legacy did he leave behind?
Well, he's done his bit and he's left the stage. I like your, is it your pun, I should say? Adelabu resigns as Minister of Power to pursue power because he loves to be in power. He's done his bit and it is left for whoever takes over to continue. It's a relay race, really. He's an accountant and finding himself a Minister of Power with very limited resources, with so many attention. I think he's done his bit. I mean, the other day when we had the Minister Edun and Kangiwa, is it Dangiwa, sacked 2 days ago, many Nigerians were saying, oh, the wrong people were sacked. What about Adelabu? What about Matawali? And he didn't disappoint. Less than 24 hours after, he actually threw in the towel. But it's good, and I wish Oyo people well. If he would be third time lucky, he's contested for governorship in Oyo State twice previously, first in 2019 under APC, then in 2023 under Accord Party. Now he may be contesting under APC again. But be that as it may well have been a soft landing for him, because why did I say so? He found himself, sincerely speaking, working in this government is a very huge challenge. Look at the promise of 3.3 trillion that the president said, or the presidency said, had been paid to GenCos, generating companies that were owed about 6 trillion. And that was said, was it in 2024? But that money, to all intents and purposes, was not paid at that time. I think it was just this recently that money was eventually paid. Situation where you see approved budget and only recurrent expenditure is drawn down 100% and capital project is less than 10%. What can the gentleman do? Will he fund that exercise with his own private money? It met a challenging situation, but I said it elsewhere that if I were to be Adelabu, I will advise the president to redeploy me to another ministry. But he loves being in power, as you said, Olive. So he remains in power, but he didn't leave any powerful achievement. So, why would I have asked for redesignation? I took a cue from what happened to Festus Keyamo under Muhammadu Buhari's administration. When he was under minister of Niger Delta under Godswill Akpabio, and he felt that his impact was not being felt. He went to President Muhammadu Buhari and asked to be redeployed, and he was redeployed to Ministry of Labour under Chris Ngige then. And at least he was able to do a bit that possibly warranted his reappointment by Tinubu in 2023. So it was a low achievement for Adelabu because all his promises he wasn't able to keep to it. But it may not well be his own making altogether. That's the point I'm trying to make. It may not be his own making. I was on a panel discussion on power sector recently on a 2-hour radio program, and we have someone from the generating company, we have someone from the transmission company, we have the NERC, we have the DISCO represented, and all of them came with their own buckets of complaints. The generating company said the government was owing them 6.6 trillion thereabout. The transmission company was not represented, but we know that the transmission lines are very weak. And even when you generate 6,000 or 7,000 or 10,000, they cannot be evacuated. We were told on that panel discussion that what could be transmitted was just maximum of 4,500 megawatts on our transmission lines currently. So even if you generate up to 10,000, you pay the gas supplier, you are running optimally in terms of generation, you can only evacuate maximum of 4,500. So what happens? And it is that 4,500 that is evacuated that would be distributed by the DISCOs, the distribution companies. And then the distribution companies are themselves private sector players. And I would say the National Economic National Energy Regulatory Commission has not been performing because they are actually the agency that is supposed to oversee all these generation, transmission, distribution companies. But you find out that while Nigerians are being exploited, NERC is just there issuing policy directives that is not implementing. We see a lot of exploitation by these distribution companies in terms of metering. Federal government supplied millions of meters, yet we learned reliably that these meters are being sold in some states to consumers. We learned, and I witnessed it in my community where when we had problem with a transformer, as against what is written in the charter of customer charter or whatever anyone calls it. We were the one that had to contribute money to DISCO in Abuja to fix our transformer. We had to contribute. Even when our cable was stolen at some point, the community had to contribute. So all the things that were written in the charter for consumer to enjoy are not being enjoyed. Rather, what we have seen is exploitation. And my community is on Band-Aid, but many a time we don't even enjoy up to 18 hours of electricity, let alone 20 hours.
Nigeria's going to attest to that. I mean, Nigerians going to test that has been very, very critical, especially of recent. Well, Mr. Jideojo, let's look at a video. I just want you to also share your thoughts on how critical, or rather pivotal, Adelabu's resignation will be in line with what we're about to see concerning what the president had said. So the president had said something during the campaign period, you know, and so on, that if I don't give you power, but don't take my words for it, for the benefit of the viewers. Let's watch that video.
Whichever way, by all means necessary, you must have electricity, and you will not pay for estimated bill anymore. A promise made will be a promise kept. If I can't keep the promise and I come back for second term, don't vote for me. That's the truth. Unless I give you adequate reasons why I couldn't deliver.
Do you think the president can use any adequate reasons to pacify Nigerians why they should vote for him for a second term? I'm sorry I put you on the spot, though.
No, you see, John, I just said it. Politicians campaign in poetry, but they deliver in prose. So you could see he had already put a caveat there. Unless I can give you adequate reasons. So he will not be fishing for reasons why he will not deliver. Because today we know estimated billing is still very flourishing across several states. Many communities are still on estimated billings. Customers are still paying for troubleshooting. When you have issues, whether it's a rainstorm that fell down your electricity pole, or vandals steal the cables or whatever, the community will still be the one to replace those stolen items, even when we are not the one that stole it. A lot of exploitation is still happening. While I will also admit that there is issues with non-payment of electricity by ministries, departments, and agencies, including armed forces, that are owing billions in naira to distribution companies. There are issues with energy theft by some people, but the fraction of people who are engaging in energy theft is very insignificant. I'm not sure it's up to 10%. Even my community where we have prepaid meter, every month this AED staff still comes around to check whether there is a bypass or anybody within the house is stealing the electricity. So to use those instances as excuses why they didn't perform is a no-no. So the president definitely will be taking up, and this is part of the reason why he may not attend the debate, because he knows that if there is a public debate, presidential debate ahead of 2027, someone in the room will definitely take him up. And even if he goes on campaign, unless there is no opportunity to ask that question, we are going to be asking him, you said we should not vote for you, except you give us electricity by all means necessary. It's been 3 years down the line. As I've said, let me shock you. I write for the Punch newspaper every Wednesday. And after my session on that Radio Nigeria Network program about a month ago, I did further research, and I discovered that for Nigeria to be self-sufficient in electricity, we need 30,000 megawatts of electricity, 30,000, 30. But we are currently generating, and assuming without considering that we are generating 6,000 megawatts. Look at the shortfall. We still need 34,000 megawatts. Can Tinubu administration, with all good intention, can it even generate up to 10,000 before 2027? And like I said, even if you generate 10,000 megawatts of electricity, the transmission lines are weak and inadequate and being routinely vandalized. that you may not be able to evacuate up to 5,000 megawatts on those transmission lines.
So are we saying in essence that we are doomed?
Well, let me not say that only. We are not doomed. And this is where I'm coming up to what has also happened. The reforms that have happened in the course of these 3 years. Recall that one of the constitutional alterations that was signed by President Buhari was the devolution of electricity from the exclusive to concurrent legislative list. And one of the first set of laws that President Tinubu signed on to is this Electricity Regulation Act. Yeah, thank you. That was in 2023. And so what is currently happening is that there is a lot of off-grid electricity generation going on. Off-grid. So what we have been discussing hitherto is on-grid electricity. So that's where you talk about GenCos, the transmission company, then the distribution company. But today, in many states, including Lagos, Oyo, Delta, Rivers, several states have set up their own electricity regulation companies meant to provide electricity for their states. So by the time this, Oyo State is already doing test transmission for about, is it 30 megawatts or 50 megawatts? And I know Lagos is doing likewise, several states are doing likewise. So that's one. Even the Aso Rock, recall that Aso Rock in 2024 budget, or is it 2025 budget, he earmarked 10 billion naira for the solar electrification of the Aso Rock Villa, and perhaps maybe inclusive of the federal secretariat. I wouldn't know, but at least I know that that issue came up, and people are saying we are doomed. If the Aso Rock Villa will not go solar, then what is left for Nigerians not to find alternative means of electricity? So there is a lot of off-grid energy solutions that are currently being adopted by many states and private entrepreneurs. There are entrepreneurs now, because of the liberalization and privatization in the electricity sector. There are several private companies that are setting up electricity solutions for communities within a state. So in Ogba community where your office is it Ogba or Ikeja axis? A company can come and say for Ikeja, from Ikeja Ogba, Ikeja Alausa, we will provide electricity solution to you 24/7, and it will be an off-grid energy solution. And it's not like you are going to be buying electricity generator in your homes. So there are so many of that going on, but it's only catering to those industrial hubs and residences where the eyebrow residences, where they know, those who are deploying this energy solution know it will be easy for them to charge cost-reflective tariff, in which case they can make their money back very quickly. So we have to factor that into discussion, that it's not just, when you are looking at energy solution now, it's not just on-grid energy solution. A lot is going on in terms of diversification by private companies, by state governments, by and you know, with the new law says even a local government can decide that they want to provide electricity for their own local government. A town, just a one town in a community, in a local government, can decide to avail themselves of energy solution that will be off-grid. And it could be solar, it could be generation, transmission, and distribution solution, but there is a lot of energy mix that is going on. So we will need technical experts to help us quantify how much of these off-grid power solutions are we currently enjoying right now.
And as we wrap the conversation up, we have a few more months to go. You said there are many factors, and rightfully, many factors come into play when we're dealing with our electricity problem. But we cannot downplay the fact that the Minister of Power is one of the most important portfolios, or one of the most important ministers we have in our country because of our history. What should the president look out for when appointing a replacement for Adebayo Adelabu? He obviously, the president cannot be Minister of Power up until the expiration of his term.
Minister of
and Petroleum. So what are the criteria to be looked out for?
I think it needs to shop for people with experience in the power sector. Perhaps an engineer, electrical engineer, who may have some technical hands-on experience. Like I said, Adelabu is an accountant, a first-class graduate. He rose to, he was a former deputy governor of Central Bank. So he's just somebody who is used to money, auditing money, accounting procedures and all of that. So the president may have to look for someone who is who have an entrepreneurial experience, someone like someone in the mode of Professor Bati Naji, who was our former Minister of Power, someone like that, who has hands-on experience, who can oversee a lot of energy mix that is going on, and who definitely may not be a politician, because Adelabu is a politician. Even though he's an accountant, you can see that he has his eye on politics, and that's why I expected he would be one of the first to resign when the president gave that order that all those who wants to contest for 2027 should go and resign before 31st of May. But we have seen two of them that refuse to go, even though they have political ambition. The female Minister of Labour, Minister of Labour for State, I've forgotten her full name. And then Adebayo Adelabu. These two ladies and gentlemen resign outside of the March 31st deadline. But like I said, there are a lot of people with hands-on industrial experience, both abroad and in Nigeria, that could be brought. The president can adopt for someone who really, perhaps, who has been an industry player abroad with technical expertise, someone with hands-on experience, someone who can bring his wealth of experience to bear, not somebody who will be learning on the job. Because this is going to be a serious campaign issue for Mr. President. More so that, look at the way you played that videotape, that if I don't provide you electricity by all means possible, don't vote for me. And the caveats will now be what will be played up, which is that, oh, you know, I have genuine reasons, we didn't make enough money. Imagine Adelabu saying that one of his legacies is that he got electricity generation to 6,000 megawatts and that he was able to improve revenue for distribution companies. Is that an achievement? That he was able to improve revenue for distribution companies? These are people who told us when they were being privatized in 2013 that they were going to bring in foreign exchange, to deploy. But they didn't do that. Rather, they were borrowing from local banks and choking up and crowding out local industry players from accessing resources. And many of them lack the technical expertise that they claim they have. Unfortunately, none of them has been sacked, even though the law says that this should be reviewed every 5 years. But impunity is still reigning supreme in that sector. So I think there is also need for harmonious working relations between the NERC, that's National Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the operators, from generating companies to the transmission company, down to the distribution companies. They have to work in synergy, and where they are off line, where they cross the red line, there should be punishment. There should be sanctions, but we are not seeing much of that. Well,
we'll wait and see. Maybe there will be changes. Maybe the president will announce a replacement later this week, because we know sometimes it doesn't really take time. Like they say, he's a master strategist, so I'm sure he has a list of names. But we want to thank you so much, Mr. Jide Ojo, for your expertise and also for sharing your thoughts on this issue. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, John and Olive. Have a great day.
You too. Let's tell you what's coming up next on Breakfast Central as we move on. Second half, Breakfast Central, Supreme Court reserves judgment in ADC PDP leadership dispute. We'll talk about that. JAMB holds first exam for visually impaired candidates amidst all the drama that took place. And we'll talk about group as they speak on rebuilding Nigeria, so stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The Apex Court has reserved judgment in two high-profile political cases. That is the case involving the David Mark-led ADC leadership tussle and the Taminu Turaki-led PDP convention dispute. Now, in the ADC's case, INEC has basically declared the board refusing to recognize any faction until the Supreme Court speaks. And in the PDP, the shadow of the FCT minister and the Turaki faction is looming large over the nullified convention in Ibadan. And at the heart of these disputes, many Nigerians have been left asking the question, is the judiciary becoming the returning officer used to resolve internal party affairs? And should this really be the case in an evolving democracy like ours? Joining us for this discussion are legal practitioner and former chairman NBA Buhari FCT chapter, Monday Ajay. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And we also have Mr. George Ashiru, who is, of course, chairman of the African Democratic Congress in Lagos State. Thank you very much for your time with us this morning.
My pleasure always. Thank you.
All right, let's start with Mr. Ajay. The Supreme Court has previously ruled that courts should not interfere in internal party matters. Yet, here we are again with leadership disputes and conventions being litigated. How do we interpret this? Because even if we go to the Labour Party, very recently we saw Julius Abure. He's also banking on the fact that the judiciary, the Supreme Court, should not be involved in meddling in party matters. How did we get here? Would you say that maybe the blame is with the judiciary for overstepping, or that parties are abusing the courts and using them to settle internal scores?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I want to say with all emphasis that the law has not changed. Courts in Nigeria have been stopped from dabbling into internal affairs of any political party, no matter how big or small they are. It's strictly their internal affair, and court will not be tempted at any stage to delve into their internal affair. But that is general position, and that is where we are missing generally to members of the public. Having made that point clear, the law is also clear, which has not changed as of this morning, that the court also has the jurisdiction to intervene when any atom or the part of the constitution of that party is alleged to be breached. So that's the missing link, and that's where the society, the public are missing it. The court cannot dabble into internal affairs, but when there's any atom of breach, no matter how minimal it is, the law also clothes the court to assume jurisdiction and resolve that issue. And that is what is happening. And those who are not versed about the law, they always cry wolf about this. So as it is, if there's any allegation about the breach of any political party, such aggrieved member has a fundamental right to approach any court of the land that has jurisdiction to entertain such. And I think that's what some of these party members are utilizing by approaching the court. And the court has the inherent power to assume jurisdiction over such matter. And that's what is playing out now.
I think the dicey part is being able to understand, draw that thin line between what is a breach of, the party constitution, or, depriving someone of their rights, or meddling in party affairs. I think that's where, there is some measure of confusion. But let's go to Mr. Ashiru and get your thoughts about the recognition or the Supreme Court stance regarding the ADC. What does this mean for your party?
Okay, well, thank you. And I do appreciate Barrister Ajay for the clarity that he has brought forth. Simple clarity. The Supreme Court essentially understands the party is supreme and says that as much as possible, whatsoever you are going for within the party, the judiciary should not intervene as much as possible, except where there is a clear violation of both the party and the country's constitution as it regards to individuals concerned. However, what the court also did not allow is for the chairman of INEC to be the interpreter of this constitution, to be the one interpreting whose rights are violated. by not allowing the court to fulfill and complete its own procedures, and for INEC chairman to make a pronouncement that as far as they are concerned, the party called ADC doesn't have leaders. That again is another breach of our own right as a party to choose our own leaders and determine who is our national chairman and secretary and members of our NWC. So these are very, very important issues. So what the Supreme Court really has done is to simply receive the hearing from both parties, documentations, in order for them to go and make a consideration and come back with a ruling. And that ruling, they have not given us a date. Our hope is that Supreme Court understands the fundamental necessity for prioritizing anything that has to do with the survival of democracy of Nigeria and ensuring that this ruling comes as soon as possible. And we also believe that the Supreme Court will look at the overall interest of Nigeria and Nigerians and the overall interest of the millions of members of ADC in our right to determine who our leaders are and to go forward to produce candidates that we believe will win elections in 2027.
Okay, I mean, we're looking at the ADC now. Let me bring the barrister back in. Let's discuss this just a little bit more before we look at the other case, which also has to do with the PDP, and whether we like it or not, still also has to do with the ADC as well. The INEC itself had gone ahead to remove names of the leaders in the ADC and said it was respecting what was said, which is status quo ante bellum. Mr. J, we've heard different interpretations, and it's one thing we always do, to understand what each person has to say concerning status quo ante bellum, especially looking at what Mr. Ashiru just said, removing the leaders of a party, acting too quickly. Do you think INEC overstepped by removing the leaders of the ADC rather than wait to have gone to the appeal court to get the interpretation of status quo ante bellum? What's your take on status quo ante bellum? Two questions in one. Did INEC overreact, and what's the meaning?
Let me state this quickly without sounding any modest. I must say with all emphasis that INEC missed the point at this moment. When issues like this are on course, and sadly enough, is also a professor in this profession, he should know better. When issues like this are on, what is expected of him is that parties should maintain their status quo. That's before going to that court. What is the status? That is what it, in an ordinary way I can explain so that the public will get it right. If my name is John, before going to court, then you can say we should maintain status quo. That means I should maintain that name John, not the new name. I should go back to where we are. Who was the leader or the leadership of this ADC before they approached the court? I think it was David Mark led whatever. If we are not talking about maintaining status quo, then meaning Mark and his group should stand until the court decide otherwise. But for INEC to descend to the arena at this stage, somebody is supposed to be a neutral body. Honestly speaking, I don't think there are two ways about it. And we don't need to waste time on this. Very straightforward. INEC missed the point completely. Because INEC is supposed to wait till the outcome of the court matter and allow those who are there to maintain their status quo. So until the reverse is stated or given, INEC under the law does not have any right to take any decision. As it is now, from both the eyes of law and the society, INEC has taken side and they have descended to the arena. And that's not expected of an institution that's supposed to maintain neutrality in all of these things. So to me, INEC missed the point. When we talk about maintaining status quo, that means those who were there before anybody wrote to the court should maintain that position until court decide otherwise. But INEC was so much in a hurry for raising best note to them. I think that's where INEC missed the whole show.
So what options are then available from a legal standpoint for the ADC? What are the available options for them?
Well, the only legal option for ADC is for them to also approach the court. And I must say this with all sincerity too, that we must dwell or get out of this idea of some of this legal mazing that we're using that is causing confusion to the general public. Of course, we lawyers, we know. And we are most of the time cause of this problem because we don't advise accurately. And that's where there's this mixed up in the society. We all know it's elementary things in law. But to avoid this type of unnecessary challenges and confusion in the society, the court should come out with simple English language. Look, parties in this matter, do this, do that. Those of you who have been in charge, remain there until our decision is taken. So as it is now, the only option left for ADC is for them to also approach the court for necessary interpretation and for them to affirm what they mean. Of course, we know what they mean, but now that the INEC pretend that they don't know, ADC cannot take law into their hand. They still have to fall back to the same institution to give a direction as to how to go about it. Anything out of this will be tantamount to taking law into their hand. They must fall back to the same court to give direction as to what they mean by status quo. And then the court will take decision on that. And then we'll move on from there.
All right. So now, Mr. Ashiru, you've heard what the options are for the ADC. There are those who have also assumed or have made statements regarding the possibility of moving to another party should this case be prolonged. There's also been, from INEC, the deadline for receiving documents from political parties. And now that the court has taken a stance, right, is there a possibility that the leaders of your party might decide to maybe move to another political party to pursue the idea of this coalition? So
let me state also very, even though I'm not a lawyer, I can also say from the principle of fundamental rights of all humans, that the moment the appellate court had made a statement that the status quo ante bellum should be maintained, our stand is with that law that we, the leadership of Senator David Mark, is the status quo ante bellum, and we've just gone ahead to do our activities until a court pronounces otherwise. We also have a right to make that interpretation. If INEC had decided to make an interpretation, then the party has a right to make an interpretation that on the 29th of July 2025, we'll all unequivocally choose a leadership, and that is the party. Party is supreme. There was no objection at that event. There was no contention at that event. There were no contentions for weeks after that event until suddenly someone went to court, and then a month later, INEC has made a decision that there's no status quo, essentially saying the party is leaderless. So we are going to continue to run into the primaries as a result of that. And it is now up to INEC to determine later on whether what we have done, as guided by the courts, has fulfilled the most important principle of the law, which is give all of us the opportunity to be part of the franchise of choosing who our next leaders will be. Now, when you're saying things like people are jumping from one party to the other, that in itself does not help the cause of democracy, which means we don't just let ship sink because individuals have interjected themselves into the narrative. So it is not a sensible or wise decision for anyone to jump. They will lose. They will lose the election. The best bet, the best way to win this election is to remain in this coalition and to fight for your rights within the coalition. Imagine if all Nigerians jump to Rwanda, to South Africa, to this, during the days of the military. Who would have fought the military to give up power so that the civilians can come back and rule this country? So we are not going anywhere. We're not jumping into any other ship. There's no other ship large enough to take what we have built in ADC. We're simply going to go ahead the way we went ahead with our congresses and our conventions. And like the barrister said, of course, there are multiple legal actions we're also taking to ensure that the appropriate interpretation is that our leadership, as approved by the National Executive Committee 29th of July, is the one recognized by both the party and the law. And so we will continue working in that regard. And if for any reason the Supreme Court then makes a decision which is favorable to us, I believe the same Supreme Court will also enforce our rights to carry on with our primaries with an extended timeline. All they need to do is make that statement to INEC that we believe that Senator David Mark is the leadership, when it comes to the interpretation of status quo ante bellum. And so whatsoever timelines have been missed, they will instruct INEC to extend it. That is within the law. So I'm not sure that should be our biggest challenge. Our biggest challenge is to identify why the chairman of INEC feels he has the right to be the one to interpret that judgment rather than go to ask for clarity concerning that judgment and therefore put Nigeria into this tailspin just months before the general election.
Okay. All right. I mean, you've said a lot. When we come back, I'd like us to look at the PDP convention, because that's another situation now that's in contention. The PDP faction led by the FCT minister, had their own convention, and then the secretary is also having a serious case in court. But when we come back after the break, we'll also be looking at another guest who will be joining us. We do have also the vice chairmanship candidate who would also join us later on, but we'll talk about that after the break. Please do stay with us, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We're still here on Breakfast Central, taking a look at the judiciary. Most importantly, the recent cases concerning the ADC and not forgetting to the PDP, plus the Supreme Court. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, you did see embattled Labour Party coach, former chairman Julius Abure, saying that he would not accept the case, especially the court's verdict on him not being the chairman of the party. And then, of course, we have the ADC, who were expecting to hear a verdict yesterday, but of course has been moved. And then you have the PDP. And talking about the PDP, let's quickly mention that we have the 2026 PDP Iru Victoria Island LCDF Vice Chairmanship candidate, Mr. Liu Bilal, who joins us in our Abuja studios. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here as we have this conversation.
Morning.
All right. Let's go straight to the PDP now. The PDP, we thought it was done and dusted, especially after you had your own convention in Abuja. The FCT minister was in a celebratory mode. We did see the people chanting and cheering. But all of a sudden, there seems to be a little sand in the Gary, as we would say, because your secretary right now is also writing to the courts to ensure that they take away or expunge a particular case against him. Can you shed more light on why this is coming now? Before we go to our legal guest, who would also share why INEC was so quick to have recognized him on their portal, neglecting the fact that there's a court case against him as well.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, the whole issue started during the Ibadan convention in November last year, whereby the Makinde factions went ahead to conduct that convention. And though there was a court order restraining that convention, but they had to go ahead to conduct it. And the day of the convention, they had to suspend some members of the party, and especially the national secretary of the party, Samuel Anyao. At that point, they had to, take the cases to the courts, and now they had to go ahead with their own convention. That's the Wike faction, which was held in Abuja, and at that point, weeks later, we had to hear that the courts had to affirm the suspension of Samuel Anyao, who happens to be the national secretary of the party. That's for the Wike faction, but which is the faction that is being recognized by the INEC. So the Turaki-led faction had an appeal in the Supreme Court, and they're still waiting for the judgments, which the judgments were being reserved yesterday. So there's been a whole lot of panic within the party, within both factions. The elections, the primaries are coming closer, and it's really worrisome at this point in time, because we don't know what's the outcome of the court rulings is going to be like. We don't know what the outcomes will be like. So at this point in time, I feel the key thing is to come, to have a resolution between both the factions in order to resolve their own cases. But before the Abuja convention, the governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, had to, went to visit the FCT minister to have some talks to see how they can reach a resolution. But at that point in time, it failed, and Samuel Anyao has every right to appeal his case and all in order to, recover back his position and the party.
Okay.
All right. I think we should bring our legal practitioner in.
Yes.
And get let's get the implication of what this means for the People's Democratic Party. Let's get the implication of what this means for the Ibadan Convention. And earlier we had asked you about the Supreme Court or the courts delving into the affairs of leadership within the party. And this is one of the arguments that the PDP had brought up, or this faction of the PDP had brought up at the court. Does this fall within the purview of courts delving into leadership drama or leadership disputes within the party?
Well, definitely there are factions right now. It's going to lead to people with the different interests. As it stands, and in this point in time, and it's like a very critical period, because if care isn't taken, the PDP might be unable to field candidates towards the 2027 general election at this point in time. And virtually most key opposition parties in the country today are in crisis, are in the courts trying to resolve their issues, and which is really giving the ruling party more upper hands, and also killing the opposition at this point in time. And it's really not politically healthy for the Nigeria's democracy.
I want you to hold on that. I'd also like the legal practitioner to speak to it as well from a legal standpoint. Let him give us an idea, Mr. Ajay. Do you believe that this falls within the purview of the court or within the court's jurisdiction? Because that's what this faction of the PDP was arguing about, saying that the party, the Supreme Court or the courts should not be determining the leadership issues. And I'm asking you because we spoke about this at the start of the conversation, and you shared that difference between when the courts should be able to intervene and when the courts shouldn't.
Let me start by making this clear position. When a matter is before any court of competent jurisdiction, you don't discuss that. But I'm speaking generally, not in respect of Supreme Court or the self-judgment. Until the judgment is out before we are at liberty to discuss the veracity or the otherwise or whatever that happens there. But as it is, I'm going to speak generally. And that's what the ethics of my profession says. Now, back to the issue you raised. You see, I've tried to study the politics that's been playing in Nigeria generally, and I discovered that there's a serious challenge that has not been addressed. And one of the challenges is that 99% of our politicians are grossly indisciplined, selfish, and self-centered. They don't have respect for any law of the land. They are just about themselves. I can say this anywhere, and I can defend myself anywhere. Yourself, you know what I'm talking about. That's reality. Now, each political party have what they call internal mechanism. It's just like what Obasanjo described some years ago, that most of their affairs, families affair. There's internal mechanism at which you can resolve any issue that happen within your party. But having made that one clear, party is also at liberty to also step outside whatever that is being said if it's not satisfied. And what is happening today is that any member that is aggrieved in any political party, what they do through their lawyer is to couch a particular clause to show that there's a breach of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and that of the political party. And that is why the member in question is being aggrieved. And not only that, you know that there's a common trend in Nigerian politics. They don't have respect for their own constitution, and not even the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They don't have respect for these two major laws that guide them. So they have been doing this business as usual, but nobody has been challenging them because they see it as families affair. Now that some of them, maybe for reason best known to them, whether for selfish interest or whichever interest, now they can see clearly and they can see with their two eyes legally that this bother about the breach of our constitution. If the law says that if we are going to have a convention, I'm speaking generally now, I may not be quoting any constitution, that certain steps must be taken. One, local governments must do this. I mean, ward must do this, local government must do this, state must do this, and you jump a particular procedure as stated by your constitution, that's a breach of your constitution. And a member of that party will be taken as a family's affair before and never raised eyebrow. At this time around, if you rush to court, the laws allow him to rush to court and make his grievances known, and the court will entertain such. So it's no longer domestic or internal affair of that party at that moment. The moment there's an atom breach of the constitution of that political party and that of the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it has left the realm of domestic affair of that political party, and that is what is happening. Look at what is happening even in Oyo State. Even a blind man should know that what is happening in Ibadan, as at that time, there is a pronouncement of court. What is expected of a disciplined citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is to accord certain respect for that court decision, whether right or wrong, because there are layers of court that can still set it aside. You hold on, but in a broad light, when there is court order, don't do this. Somebody, for a reason best known to him, I'm not trying to apportion blame, I'm speaking objectively here, went ahead. And you also need the implication. There are several cases in Nigeria where such thing has happened and the court declares such activity as a nullity for not obeying court order as at that material time. So indiscipline within the party, whatever. Now tell me, is there any political party that is not in court today? All of them, they are in court because of this factor. Indiscipline everywhere, no regard for their own constitution, written by themselves. So that's the problem. It's no longer within the realm of internal affair. It has gone beyond the realm because there's alleged breach of the constitution of the party and that of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, let me bring in just for one last time, Mr. George Ashiru. Let's look at the ADC as we look to wrap this up. We've heard from the PDP. He's talked about how this could cause, a little challenge in the party, and they may end up not fielding any presidential representative. Let me just put it that way. But for you, Mr. George Ashiru, is there a certainty from the ADC that come what may, regardless of the legal challenges, that the ADC will come out unscathed and look forward to carry on with your primaries?
I think that the persecution from the ruling party in different ways, we just heard the chief of staff to the president of this country essentially instructing a former member of the party to stay within the party illegally and scatter the party. What else do we need to know about the intentions of this ruling party to ensure that none of the opposition parties is able to come together to field candidates to challenge this perpetual suffering that Nigerians are experiencing in just these past 3 years? So I can assure you that the voice and the power of the people will ensure that the right thing is done, right from the ruling of the Supreme Court to all of the various court judgments. It will be in the favor of the Nigerian people. That is the assurance that I have. I also need to state that there's a moral argument and there's an ethical argument for why it's important to have a healthy democracy. We have seen in the whole of the West African coast how militaries have interjected themselves into civilian administration because, in their own opinion, this discipline, this impunity has become the order of the case in politics, and where in the ruling parties, the presidents in power and so on and so forth, have basically arrogated themselves the power of a military, dictatorial in style of leadership. This is the reason you see problem in a nation when you do not allow healthy democracy to thrive. It will create rebellion. It will create internal tensions within the country. And I know that sometimes even the judges and the justices of the Federal Republic of Nigeria also realize the importance of making judgments on time and in accordance with both the law and the mood of the nation. So that's why I have this belief that we, ADC, will field candidates in all of these elections, regardless of the various machinations and manipulations of the ruling party regarding this matter.
All right. I also want to come back and speak to PDP's position. And I know there isn't a generally stated position. And I'm asking because with regards to the PDP, we've seen the Minister of the FCT say that they will not, he personally would be lending his support to Mr. President as the official candidate for 2027. he will not be the first. We've seen ABGA as well, who have adopted the president if, he returns into office. Let's get a sense of your party. What is the general consensus? You did say while you were answering that with all this rancor within the party, the PDP might not be able to field a candidate for 2027. Is there a general unspoken acceptance of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a quote-unquote consensus candidate for the party?
Well, the PDP hasn't reached a resolution to have a consensus candidate. The FCT minister, I feel, is speaking for himself. And we members of the party wouldn't accept that to work for an opposition, because that's against, the guidelines and the constitutions of our own party to work for another, for another party during elections and all. So the FCT minister he is on his own. He can't dictate for the party to come up with a consensus, because definitely we have people that will be coming up for different positions across political offices and all with interest, and definitely we will be holding primaries. That I think just yesterday the schedules of the primaries have already been released, and so the people will go ahead in terms of purchasing nomination forms. I know, because as it stands, the FCT's minister is working for the president, like the present administration, and to me, I feel all these are just issues that all started due to the 2023, general elections. And I feel the FCT minister is trying to prove a point based on the fact that he felt that he was ill-treated by, the Atiku camp at that, point in time, starting from the presidential primaries and all. And that's where the issues of the PDP all started. And now these people are gone, and they are trying to see how they could, silence other opposition parties and all. But at this point in time, it's really very uncalled for, because the party, no one is above the party, so you can't come and make it dictates to us to, support the president, because we are really against, this present administration, and
Okay.
PDP is trying to find its way back, to the helm of affairs in order to, win positions during the 2027 general elections at this point. So the issues now about Nigerian politics is that most of our politicians are not principled. They are not, based on ideologies and all. I don't, like the idea of jumping defecting from one party to the other based on the fact that, your interest, hasn't been favored. So this is why we keep seeing people defect the campaign from one party to the other, but unlike in advanced countries whereby people, follow political parties based on their ideologies and all. But at this point in time in Nigeria, it's so crazy because people keep running up from one party to the other. But we as PDP members, we really, align with the principles of the parties that were being laid down by our founding members. And when you look at, most of the developmental, strides in this country today, you tend to find out that they were being conceived by the PDP. It's a party that, which I align with, align with its policies and, principles at large.
Okay, all right. I mean, well said. I mean, you're a PDP member, so of course would expect that. But what we're looking at now is the faction that's being created and so on. Just to go back to Mr. George Ashiru for my final question. Senator Toyin Woye has emerged as the senator minority whip in the assembly. Talk about the Senate, and he's a member of the ADC. Now, what does this mean for the ADC? And secondly, I just want to wrap up with your thoughts on the way forward concerning the discrepancies that we do here were found inside of the gazetted copy of the Electoral Act, which presumably or clearly, as mentioned by a former INEC staff, says that it allows political parties to print their own ballot papers and the likes. You know the whole story. I just want your reaction on that, and also your reaction on Senator Moye.
Well, I mean, the first thing is to celebrate ADC as becoming the official opposition party in Nigeria, both at the national and even at the state level. In Lagos State, we now have 4 elected members of House of Reps and 1 member of the State House of Assembly in our midst in Lagos, making us the official opposition party formally in Lagos State. And so clearly having a minority leader allows us to be more effective in pushing our agenda in the National Assembly. We're able to push through, knowing fully well that we have now more senators and more members of the House of Reps. We can push through with some of our ideas and thoughts and policies and help to also highlight some of the issues that are coming from policies that are favored by the majority in the National Assembly at the moment, so that everybody gets to hear about it. More importantly for us, I think, is the idea that our people in ADC have refused to follow this idea, to follow this ruling party's utter domination of our policies and the leadership. We are able to provide a true, credible alternative in terms of ideas and thoughts. And so that is something we need to celebrate. And as you already have said, there's a discrepancy in the Electoral Act as was published to the media and what was assented to by the president. That is a major issue that National Assembly needs to take, because it is their duty to state that this is not what we passed, and they need to keep making that argument for those changes to be effected. There should be no reason why any party to be able to print ballot boxes. It is illegal. It's something I cannot even begin to fathom. So this is one of the things we're going to push the members of the National Assembly, that our ADC members, to definitely and directly challenge. And if it's not working there, we will go to court again to ensure that that part is properly explained and expunged, as the case may be.
That's a tough one. Well, I'm afraid we have to draw the curtains here. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ajay, and not forgetting to Mr. Liu and, of course, Mr. George Ashiru. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let's tell you that while the 2026 UTME has been in the news for several reasons, for candidates being kidnapped and rescued to candidates protesting over system glitch. I don't know if you saw that video as well. Well, let's tell you that Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, is also getting recognition for advancing inclusive education in Nigeria, particularly through its Equal Opportunity Group, which has sustained specialized UTME arrangements for visually impaired candidates for over a decade. The 2026 exercise is being described as a global benchmark for accessible examinations, reflecting a shift from advocacy to institutionalized inclusion, with over 500 visually impaired candidates sitting for the exams.
However, stakeholders say these gains highlight a broader gap, as inclusion in Nigeria remains largely political driven rather than constitutionally guaranteed. The conversation has also been shaped by recent security concerns, with Benue State Governor Hyacinth Alia urging JAM to reschedule UTME for candidates affected by a kidnapping incident, reinforcing the need for flexible and responsive systems that ensure no student is left behind. Joining us to discuss these developments is founder of TAF Africa, Dr. J. Kepele. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. The best team on television.
Thank you for your very kind words. How does this information come to you, or this news come to you, of what JAM is doing to foster inclusion? First of all, how do you feel about it? And, how far are we in terms of ensuring that we include people who are living with certain disabilities and ensuring that they have a level playing field, especially in the education sector?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Olive. Thank you, my very good friend Joe, for having me. It's been on for over 10 years now, and basically what we are doing is to continue to improve on what we have. And it's not only for the visually impaired, it's for persons with disability in general, although the visually impaired or the blind students are benefiting more from the operationalization of equal opportunity examination. But it's a test run, and we're believing that in the course of time, we will continue to improve and add more persons with disability on the list of candidates. It's like you rightly said, it's one of the best practice globally. I think we're the only country right now offering that kind of examination. And several countries in Africa have been understudying Professor Oluyede to see how they can copy the same thing. We have very, very few challenges because it is planned, well planned, and well executed. We're across several centers. And to show you the inclusivity, even in the leadership of the group, I'm the second vice chairman of the group. And Professor Okebokola is the overall chairman. And Yahuzi is the second vice chairman, first vice chairman. And we will continue to improve. And I hope Olive will not ask me where are the women. There are women membership of JOG. We have a sizable number of women who are equally participants. And I want to exonerate us by saying that the secretary of the group is a woman. Just before Olive will ask me about inclusion of women.
Okay, but I still wanted to talk about what this inclusion, looks like. And I'm asking because I know you and I had spoken about this sometime on air as to how people living with albinism often are not taken into consideration with regards to their eyesight when writing exams. And sometimes they're given the same timing that, other people are given. So what is the picture of what this particular incident looks like, especially with regards to people living with albinism?
Oh, no. People with albinism are part of the group. Now, this is why awareness is important, Olive. The problem is that at the point of filling the forms, most of these people with albinism, people with all kinds of disability, oftentimes they do not, I'm so sorry, I'm struggling with my system. Oftentimes they do not indicate, they don't indicate their disability. So if you don't indicate your disability, it becomes very difficult to pinpoint who has what and who needs what. And so awareness is very important. And we will continue to do that. There's a need for students, and if you're a parent, you're listening to me, if you're going to fill this form in the future, there's a need for you to indicate what type of disability you have. That will help us to cater for your need, whether you need accessibility, you need accessible technology, whatever you need somebody to interpret for you, somebody to read for you. There's a need for you to indicate what kind of disability you have. So if, for instance, if you indicate you are a blind candidate, then we'll provide brailles and all the things you need. If you indicate that you are a person with albinism, then we know that we'll provide extra time for you to write the examination. If you indicate that you're physically challenged, that you sit on the wheelchair, then we'll make sure that the venue is accessible for you to come. If you're Down syndrome, or maybe you are whatever disability you have, once that form is filled, it allows us to assess what the needs are so that we can meet those needs and make sure that you participate. Now, Professor Oluyede and the team has gone a notch higher by ensuring that once you finish your exams and you pass and you have the cutoff mark, we will follow through until you are admitted. So I've seen Professor Oluyede calling vice chancellors of university to say, listen, this person made the cutoff mark and, above the cutoff mark, and therefore should be admitted. And they don't need to pay a dime. I want to say that there's a particular school, I won't mention their name, that I understood that they were charging as much as 2 million naira to admit students. And I called the provost of this institution. And of course, bottom line, I was able to get admission for 2 candidates without paying a dime. So I don't know how factual that story is, but even if it's true, I did not experience it, and I was able to get the students admitted at no cost to the student, and on record time as well. So there's a need for us to continue to ensure that we disseminate the right information so that people can make the right decision. I want to commend News Central. You are fast becoming the voice of the voiceless. The town hall meeting we had in Asaba brought me back, and today I'll be meeting with government officials, and what brought us here is being addressed. And hopefully, Olive, you'll be happy because this is your state. Hopefully, your state governor will repeal this unfortunate bill that was signed, which I want to exonerate him, and said probably he was not aware. They signed 1% in place of 5%. And I want to assure you that I'm meeting with all the very high top government official of Delta State, including my very good friend, the Attorney General, the Minister, the Commissioner for Information, Charles, and of course the Secretary to the government, Mr. Kingsley. Very, very brilliant set of people and willing to hear. And that's what we need in leadership.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Jekipwele, and all the best in the meeting that we'll hold today. And a good one, especially like you mentioned, for JAM. We hope to have you again.
Yes,
further.
Joe, let's get ready because Abuja, we are hitting Abuja with the town hall meeting. Okay. And the INEC chairman has assured me he will be in attendance, and we will see how best we push inclusion. Olive, I'm still waiting for your promise. So.
Just to mention that I was in Asaba sometime last week, and someone actually did walk up to me to tell me that they attended the town hall that held there, and the feedback was really good. So well done to you as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. We gave out wheelchair, we gave out assistive devices, and I was very proud that your managing director was one of the people that gave out those wheelchair through our provision. Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us, and well done. All right, we're still bringing you more this morning on Breakfast Central. Remember that we still have our newspaper review coming up shortly, but first, let's go on a very quick break, and we have breakfast headlines coming up in a moment. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's now bring you the newspaper front pages, and we have the COO of Sustainable Stories Africa, Wade Ahimia, joining us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Olive.
Good morning. Always great to have you.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mr. Wade.
I like your glasses. When are you?
It's giving Superman.
Well, I hope you don't. Anyway, I know you also struggle with a similar plague. So.
Oh, people that have 4 eyes.
It's an eye plague challenge. But then again.
How are you?
Not bad. How have you been? I mean, statistics shows that you're spending nothing less than almost about 80,000 to 90,000 to fill up your tank. And if you do that, it lasts for only 5 to 6 days. So times 80,000 times 5.
80,000 is dependent on the car. Because if it's an SUV, it will be more.
50 liters.
We get up to 150 key, depending on the car you're driving.
Wow. So me, I've learned from statistics a long time ago that the best time to fill up your car is when it's on 3/4.
You don't even let it to get to 3/4. Once it just gets below F, just top it up back.
You might not have the cash or the resources every time. So every week, I just try, buy 30K.
How many people do fill up again?
Unfortunately, if I do that, like my tank, I have to fill it up at least once a week, and it's not enough anymore. Also, I don't know my fuel consumption.
The fuel these days, nobody's talking about it. How volatile.
It's probably lighter.
It's lighter. It's way lighter.
And that, you see, and that's the thing about fuel. They're different qualities. And the thing about it is that there's a range in Nigeria.
Super premium, premium.
Well, that's when you are.
That's in Dubai.
You are going back. Oh, but we used to be in Nigeria.
It used to be in Nigeria way back.
Yeah, when I was much younger. But the thing is that there is a quality standard that you have to meet, and there's a range. I can't remember, and I can't remember the range off the top of my head. And once it's within that space, then you're fine. You're fine. But it's lighter, so it burns faster.
So fast before you move from point A to B.
Well, the roads are freer, and when you fire the car, the more for you.
Let's go straight to the papers. Well, let's put the phone number up so you can call in. Don't forget you can be part of our conversation this morning as we look at the dailies. We'll start off first with This Nigeria. That's our very first newspaper. We're going to start with electricity crisis persists as Adelabu exits power ministry. Ex-minister says peak power generation rose to 6,000 megawatts during tenure. Increased revenue from 1 trillion naira to 2.3 trillion naira, among other achievements. So, the minister has given his own scorecard, but let's go straight to that because that's the biggest story. What say you on that issue?
On which one?
Adelabu, the minister,
his resignation,
who has exited, who was left.
That's always been his ambition.
Yes,
that's always been his ambition. And in my own opinion, I don't think he did great. Are you with me?
What do you remember him for?
For telling us that to solve Nigeria's power problem, we needed about 100 billion. That's what I remember him from. And it's unfortunate that I have to remember him that way. It's someone that I know very well, but it's unfortunate that I have to remember him that way. But the truth of it is, peak generation rose to 6,000. Wow.
That was in 2024, I believe.
We're still talking about 6,000.
But we're not currently on 6,000.
No.
What
beats? He said he was able to achieve it in 2025.
Wait. Now, what beats me is that we're still talking about 6,000.
Well, we need at least 30,000.
No. We have a capacity in Nigeria of close to 16,000 megawatts. First, there's a gas issue, which has not been resolved. Then, there is also a money issue. I read a few days ago somewhere that the federal government has audited their outstanding to the GENCOs and is now 2.4 trillion from 4 trillion. How, they come up with this, every day the same way they said about how much was being owed by the federal government in FX, and they've stabilized it and so on. And I think there's another newspaper that spoke about 2.04 trillion being shared by the states. And when I saw that this morning, I decided to go look through GDP and revenue generation over the last 10 years. 2024, because 2025 hasn't come out, it was $252 billion. That's the lowest we've had in 10 years. Since this government came in, it's been lower, but we're sharing more money. Like I told you, because it's 3 times the amount. So if I have 200 million, if I had 200 million in 2023, at 460, it will only be, or let's say 450, it will only be 900. If I have 200 million today,
at 1,000, it's way
1,300.
The value has disappeared.
But let's also remember that the value hasn't disappeared. The value of the quantum of money has increased. But the value is still the same because the amount you're bringing in hasn't changed.
Oh, I think what you're alluding to.
Coming to power, let's just address power.
Yeah.
And I've said it so many times. I was fortunate enough to be at the to be in the power sector when the process started. And when everybody says, the last administration said, oh, it was sold to the cronies of the previous administration. Right. This administration has backed down on that, they sold it to their friends. The truth is, there are agreements that were signed. Those agreements, the federal government has not met 20% of it. There was an exchange rate issue which skyrocketed in 2015 and disrupted the whole power sales system. This is a country where investors put down $4.6 billion to buy power assets in 2013. Some of them still owe banks. And in recent times, we've heard about banks trying to take over power assets. But the truth is, how can you invest in a system where you have aggregate technical and commercial losses that is close to 20, 30% across Nigeria? And I'm talking average across Nigeria. So when everybody says, oh, the discos are the issues or the gencos are the issues, sometimes gencos don't get gas, not because they don't want gas, but because the gas is not available, or the pricing for the gas, those who sell the gas is more profitable to sell it outside. That's one. How can you make money where those who are, the consumers who are supposed to pay cannot account for how much electricity is being used? We said this, there's been the map system. The same Adebayo Adelabu said, oh, they were going to put in how many million meters? That was last year.
Right.
Has it started? Not that I know. The federal government owes, so since they've reduced Genco zone to about 2.4 billion, so let me assume that they owe about the same thing, or 2.4 trillion. They owe both the Gencos and the Discos, in my own estimation, at least 4 trillion. The federal government owns shares in these Discos, so do the states, and they all owe money. Have you put some of these monies back or paid your bills so that these people can have monies to run this business? No, you haven't. So what exactly is all, and we blame government upon government upon government. The biggest debt in the power sector is government debt. At least it accounts for at least 40 to 50% of the debt.
Well,
and you're not paying. And you haven't paid since 2013.
Yeah, and even more than they were asking for
But everybody wants, every government comes in and wants to bully the people who have paid them $4.6 billion. If we use those monies, and then we as consumers, I will blame them because they're supposed to provide me a service. But I also, as someone who has been there and an analyst, must always see both sides of the story. So the federal government, the state governments, now the states are setting up all their electricity companies. Are they going to run it the same way that we've run it in the last 30 years?
Right.
Because if government doesn't pay its bill, then I don't know how you want people who run business, or if consumers don't pay, and a huge part of that debt is government debt.
Okay, let's take this call. Lego from Lagos calling us. Good morning and thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
He said so we can communicate with you properly. All right. Please call us back after you've turned down the volume of your TV set.
I guess that'll be my take on Adebayo Adelabu scored for me.
If you're going to rate him, if you're going to rate
exactly
him from 1 to 10,
on a scale of 1 to 10,
what would you rate him?
Unfortunately, I'll rate him 1.
1. Wow.
That's not a good score. But let's get your rating to our virtual audience, those viewing us on YouTube. We're streaming live on News Central TV Live. If you are to rate the Minister of Power,
for power,
please rate the Minister of Power on a scale of 1 to 10, and we'll take the scores from YouTube. And also, feel free to call in. The number to call in is on your TV screen. Let's have a proper conversation. Still on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, terror attacks threaten food security, Senate says. Gives military marching orders to secure farms in Benue Northeast. These marching orders have been given over and over again. But before we go into the details of these marching orders, let's hear from Uche calling from Abia. Good morning, Uche.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for calling.
This issue of power. You see, I'm surprised that this administration is still blaming past administration It is 3 years plus. And the president promised us if he did not give us light, we should not vote for him. 4 years is around the corner. He is now blaming. It's a surprising thing to me. The problem of the country is that we are not, asking questions to our leaders. All they are promising. They promise us if they remove, fuel subsidy. Oh, Nigeria will not borrow again. The issue of paying subsidy is what makes Nigeria to borrow today. I want to ask a question. This issue of borrowing, I heard there is it 700 or something billion naira or trillion? They are about to borrow again. People should ask Adebayo question. Where are we? Does it mean that anything that goes from the presidency, Adebayo and co should do what they will just sign it? He who goes on borrowing goes on borrowing. Let them have that think. God bless you people.
God bless you too. Thank you very much, Uche, for that. I'll take comments from YouTube and then we'll still take some more calls regarding the Minister of Power's performance. Thank you very much for the comments by Pius Amako, who says we need to amend our constitution. Anyway, this is regarding another story. Let me start with Adebayo Adelabu. Pius Amako rates him -10 over 100.
Wow.
Michael Obieko says...
Give me scale of 1 to 10. No?
Wow.
Michael Obieko says, Joe, good to have you back. Good morning to you and Princess Olive. Thank you. Good morning, Michael. Media Judge says, Adelabu's score is -1.11111. He did not perform at all. Fashola as SAN performed better as Minister of Power than Adelabu. Michael Obieko says, if I have to rate, he called him Minister of Darkness. He says, sorry, Power. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give him 1 over 10, same as you. Keep the comments coming, but let's get from Abubakar. Abubakar is calling from Lagos. Good morning, Abubakar.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Morning.
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
All right, please go ahead with your comment.
Okay, so I just want to chip in with respect of the issue of electricity industry. I think one of the things that is disturbing the industry, the overall electricity industry, is the issue of how do you collect your revenue. As long as the electricity is not free, so that revenue shortfall is becoming a challenge to the industry at large. So I think one of the things that all these stakeholders need to look at is how do we save that revenue? Because every energy that is being generated from generation to transmission and that is the distribution is being accounted for. And the issue of energy theft is another issue, an issue of people not willing to pay for electricity. It's one of the issues that needs to be looked at because the whole industry boils down to revenue. So as long as you cannot account for the revenue of the energy being generated, then definitely that problem will not be solved. So we need to look at it holistically. How do you address that issue to ensure that people are well metered and ensure that energy theft is being reduced drastically? So I think those are the things that we look at. Government and all relevant stakeholders need to look at this. And also the issue of banding, band A, band C, and this. I think the regulatory agency need to look at and monitor closely to ensure that if you are a band A customer, you get supply of band A. If you are a band B customer, you get a supply of band B. Because all these banding have been clearly stated. They have their a minimum number of hours. So I think the regulatory body need to look at this also to ensure that there is fairness in the system. That's my take-up.
Thank you very much for your comments. Very important.
Very interesting.
Let's remember that in power, there are two different power consumption. There are two different there are two categories of people. There is the customer and there is the consumer.
Yeah.
The customer gets power. The consumer pays for power. And that's what he's referring to. All
right. So the next story before we move to the next paper, terror attacks, they're giving marching orders. We're seeing here that the Senate is giving marching orders to secure farms in Benue.
Is the Senate giving the order now? Okay. The executive,
is the president
the executives who have the right to give order have given so many orders, and we haven't seen the outcome of the orders. So now the legislative who are supposed to monitor them are also giving the orders. But of course, the orders will fall on deaf ears, unfortunately. And the reason why is simple. Because we don't have the will to fight insecurity. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Let's take Frank all the way from Port Harcourt to call in. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah. Let me go straight to the resignation of Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. For me, it's a welcome development because we have been facing challenges under his watch as a Minister of Power. No light, and under his watch, Aso Rock migrated from National Grid to solar. That is to tell you that the man have not done well. If he have done well, Aso Rock would have even migrated from National Grid to solar. So I'm hearing that they want to run for governor for Oyo State. Well, let's for your people to decide if you have done well. Thank you and God bless you.
Very much.
And that's another thing that he said. If
he has done
the house that commands the nation leaves the power grid, will I blame you, Joe, for moving out of the power grid?
Okay. At all. Let's go to the Nigerian Tribune. Let's check out another paper.
It's a very
Although we were talking on the terror attacks.
Yeah, no, he has already answered.
Yes, and then we have good story. We do hear that Operation Hadinkai has recorded a success. They've been able to neutralize insurgents, about 24 of them in number. That's the story we've gotten. So the army are indeed putting in the work. But we do have Leko. Leko is calling back. Leko, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good, we can hear you loud and clear. Now go on with your contribution.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to contribute about the issue of power. I think the major problem is revenue, and even a lot of these government agencies, they are owing electricity bill. How do you expect to, when there's no liquidity in the sector, and then the privatization was even done completely wrong from the beginning. And a lot of people, and the other problem is putting someone in power that has no experience with power. Someone like Adelabu is an accountant. What does he know about electricity? Nothing. All he knows is about just generating revenue. There has to be a system where everybody is metered and, they can collect the revenue. So there's a lot of problems in that regard with,
Thank you so much, Leko. I just need to. I want us to see the video.
Yes. Because he's mentioned the accountant. I'm an accountant.
Okay.
So let's. So it's not about whether you're an engineer or not. It's a business. There's a business model, and the model is very clear. If consumers don't pay because you cannot first and foremost, you can't account for all the electricity. You can account for the electricity that comes from the generation through the transmission into your network. But each time you send it out, and consumers bypass, there are no meters to detect them, then you will have losses.
That's a big one. But he also made mention of the point that you cannot blame them because it started from the privatization. And we do have a video.
And I totally disagree with that.
But let's see what the president had mentioned.
But let's
Federal Executive Council.
And I would answer that.
I don't know if our producers have that video where the president.
And I would speak to that.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the video.
You have leaders who had privatized electricity that is not working. They gave us darkness and despair. And we are trying to get ourselves through that to build a nation of bright hope and joyful people and leave our children with a life worthy.
Okay, so if we go as far back as former Vice President Atiku Abubakar under the privatization plan, of course set up during the former President Obasanjo. But like I said, between them we had successors. We had former late President Musa Yar'Adua, also taken over by former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who, by the way, visited the president yesterday. They had a closed-door meeting during the late hours of the evening. What was discussed, well, we do not know. It's on the front page of Nigerian Tribune as well. Videos were circulating yesterday. And then, after Goodluck Jonathan, we now had another president who had succeeded Goodluck Jonathan, which is the late former President Muhammadu Buhari. So in all of these years, if you add them together, wasn't it enough to have noticed that, listen, privatization was wrong and it should have been corrected?
Okay, so let me start with the president himself. This is a man in 2001, 2002, when this was about to start. He had a deal with
Schneider. Okay, all right, go.
That collapsed. That's a company that ripped people off. They had 3 badges by Egbin. So if people don't know history, let them first go and find out. And what happened to, he was going to make Lagos 24/7 light. And nothing happened after that. Now let's come back to the privatization. It started under Obasanjo. Obasanjo put the motions in place, and it took another 10 years to sell because there were so many issues until, and to be fair, all the power ministers that tried to move on, and the major issue and the major contention was transmission. Finally, they found a way around transmission. So in 2013, they sold the Gencos and the Discos. And there was going to be a management company that was going to manage the transmission, Manitoba. They came in, they were going to bring in money. They were going to be in charge of operations and, what's it called? And the CEO. And the Nigerian desk was administration. And it caused a huge issue. Nobody remembers all this. And Manitoba was forced to go in 2015. Now, and I hear you, our transmission lines haven't really expanded, although this government has said they moved it to almost 8,000, and that's fine, but we still cannot transmit more than 6,000 at peak. Because at a point in time, the peak that we were transmitting for a very long time under the last administration was 4,000. If it goes to 4,500, the grid fell. And that's why you found out that they maintained that 4,000 for a very long time, and the grid never fell for over 400 days. So there was a lot of rationing. And then comes in Band A, Band B, Band C, and it was all a way, and like everybody says, revenue generation. But how can you generate revenue when, if I get 200 units of electricity through transmission and I send it out, and I cannot account for every household what was used? The ones I can account for, those who are paid up front, the ones who I can, and then, but I have to charge that energy to people, and then came the estimated bill. And the estimated bill has been in Nigeria forever. Let nobody ever make that mistake. So once we understand this, and then people now come and it says, oh, it's previous administration and they sold it to their businesses. There are contracts that were signed. The World Bank, the IFC, were all involved in this process of sale. And those contracts, and that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult for government. Before, normally, this is not the first time they've tried it. But every time it has happened, government just comes and wields a big stick. Well, like I said, 60-40. 40% of all the distribution companies belong to government. They owe, like someone also alluded, I mentioned, they owe.
So that's where the challenge comes from.
Of course. Let's quickly be a stakeholder and then you're not putting money into the
that's a big one. Let's go to the Nigerian Tribune.
Sorry, before you go there, I want to take a comment from you.
All right, go ahead.
The judge says, look at the way callers are attacking Adelabu on the show. It's a sign for him to drop from the governorship race.
That's a different thing entirely.
That was a different kettle of fish.
Yes, let him go.
Nigerian Tribune, front page. Benue, Benishe killings. Senate seeks probe decisive actions. One service chiefs to probe attacks. And also military hits ISWAP logistics in Lake Chad. Kill over 30 fighters.
That's
Plateau government. Yes, that's a good. That's a good
one to hear.
Plateau government files charges against 5 suspects over Angwan Rukuba killings. The front page, as we witnessed yesterday, former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan visiting the president at the state in Aso Rock. And then Secular Road, Oyo government approves 5.8 billion naira compensation. Let's take waiting game for ADC PDP continues. Let's talk about that. Waiting game. We did have that conversation with legal expert and a Lagos State chapter chairman of the ADC, plus a PDP member. And it's looking all about the judiciary. Waiting game is on.
Well, so you go to the Supreme Court. Are you with me? And for me, this is my opinion. This is a case or an issue of urgency. Abi, how do you call it in law?
Yes,
urgent matter.
Yes,
so you need to deal with it. And why do I say that? Today is the 23rd.
Yeah.
Deadline for all political activities is May 31.
May 31.
So technically, you have 40 days.
You have to
even before then, there's even the deadline for collection of documents. INEC said, I think it's May 10th.
Yeah, till May.
No, let's just so within the ambits of that. Now, all of this, when you look at it, the only party in Nigeria that has a structure and has announced this structure for this is the APC. You, as the Supreme Court, the defenders of justice in a country, what do you think you should do? Should you not expedite your ruling? So it just beats me every time we go to court. And pardon me, my learned colleague, that, and I said it, I can't remember whether it was here, I said it last week. The law is a donkey. That's the way I see it. It's just a donkey.
Why do you say that?
Because it's not, when a donkey, can it move? Is it comparable to a horse? Or maybe we should call it a camel, which is even slower. And that's the way I see it.
The will of justice may be slow, but it will eventually...
But the will of justice also considers the exigencies and the urgencies of a matter.
Especially a national one.
God bless you.
Which can actually put a state
it can, it can create chaos.
I mean,
so it can be slow, but it also depends on who is turning the wheel.
I agree with the guest who joined us. He had said that going forward, that the judiciary and those in the ambit of the law should try and stop using ambiguous legal maxims to identify or to handle, cases where, take a look at status quo antebellum, which has turned the country.
I don't know whether we are still speaking. We are in Latin world.
I understand. I mean, learned colleague, English. I understand, but if it was simple to say, listen, return to the same state that the party was at a certain level, and let's handle.
So explain that one.
It solves that.
Status quo antebellum is
before
what the position
war.
Was before the war.
And when is that? And just say that way.
You speak it in the language that we understand.
But then when you do not understand it, you will then go back to the court.
Why do I have
So why didn't INEC go back to the appeal court?
Wait.
That's the question for
That's the biggest question.
INEC and Professor Joash. I do not hold brief
my learned colleague,
for either of them.
why don't you just speak it in the language that all of us understand now? Why Latin?
See, please, we are almost out of
There's a big story, Olive. I'm sorry, but we need to do justice to it, because sometimes we get messages from members of the ruling party saying we did not see these stories. We saw this one, and we're going to, applaud. Rising price of jet A1 fuel. Federal government offers succor to airlines, suspends collection of charges and others.
Yes.
And that's a good one for the Minister of Aviation. And
quickly go and look for money and buy my ticket to go for my daughter's graduation.
Exactly. So, our colleague here, Benga Boro, has always, championed the fact that, listen, there are too many tax collections. If you're also in the hospitality space, you find out that there's multiple taxation, from hotels to restaurants. I mean, you still pay for TV, radio, parking, VAT for food,
you have your TV on your phone.
lot. You pay for everything.
For all of this,
and people in this industry are saying, please, cut us some slack. So what do? In the hospitality sector, they push the percentage on the taxes to the customers.
But that's where it's meant to be.
But it's now difficult. And now, I mean, this is a good one, though. But
the truth of it is that taxes in the air industry is all over, is international. So what you're seeing is a lot of governments are trying to hold on to a number of them. It's happened in the UK, it's happened in Australia, it's happening in Asia, because even inter-country flights are having challenges. So yeah, that's a good one, and I commend the minister for that and so on. That's it.
I agree.
Okay. All right, let's get back into the papers before my unlearned friends will start looking for how to drag us again, and hopefully we can take a story that does not involve law.
Let's shoot the punch.
Yes, it's the punch newspaper I
punch.
want to take. On the front page of the Punch, you can see the big picture here. Alleged coup. Suspects plead not guilty, remanded in DSS custody. You can see this picture. All right. Suspects plead not guilty, remanded in DSS custody. And this is a story, of course, that involves the people who were alleged to have committed a coup. There was an attempt, for a coup. Now, just to give you the details for those who don't have it, according to the federal government, the defendants sometime in September 2025 conspired among themselves to levy war against the state, against President Tinubu, thereby committing an offense punishable under Section 37, subsection 2 of the Criminal Code. And it was alleged that the defendants had prior knowledge of a planned treasonable act involving one Colonel Muhammad Al-Hassan Mahaji and others, but failed to alert the appropriate authorities. We also did see the wives of these officers protesting and asking that the DSS, that they charge their husbands to court. The question was whether or not they were well within their rights to just leave them in ultimate detention without bringing them before a court of competent jurisdiction. They've been brought before a court. He said that the case will enter full-blown trial on Monday, and we'll continue to follow the details of this case much as we proceed with the show. Let's take a call from John. Okay, yes, that's the court situation. And yesterday, we will bring you the updates. Federal government, of course, I mean, all the defendants pleaded not guilty in this matter. They've been remanded in the custody of the DSS, and remanded followed an application by the AG of the Federation, Mr. Prince Lateef Fagbemi. He was there to personally handle the case because it's a state matter. Anyway, let's take calls. We have John calling from Lagos. Good morning, John. How are Matthew, Mark, and Luke?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I wonder which is more deadly to the polity. Is it rigged elections, rigging of elections, which is by stealth, or coup planning, which is by force? Anyway, I just want to react quickly, if you allow me, to the problem of power supply. You know, we are focusing, I believe, too much on government. And government, too, is focusing only on revenue generation. How can we have a system whereby the people can import solar equipment without being taxed for it? I have a personal example, for example, solar panels, solar equipment. I believe that if we are able to reduce taxes and allow people to import equipment, you know, that would provide them power supply without government taxing it, it would go a long way in solving that problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a good one. There's a video circulating online. Let's also bring that to the public about residents decrying a particular agency in Lagos State coming to ask for taxes, especially for
I saw
solar.
that, and they were making a video of them.
I think we have that video as well.
Video.
If we have that video, our producer can also help us, our director can help us put it up. That video.
Yeah,
where
it said that they're paying tax for solar. And I was wondering, very interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Are we now in...
well, the Lagos State has also come out to explain what it is, but let's just watch.
Lagos State. Tebama people here, Joe. Wọ́n ní àtúnṣe sólà ń pa máa gbàwé fún sólà. Ẹ wò wọ́n o, mi ìmọ̀ bí tó ti wá o. Wọ́n náà máa gbàwé fún sólà, mi ìgbọ́wọ́ ẹ̀rí. Nípa máa gbà púfà fún sólà. Ibi tẹ́ bá ti wá, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ń bọ̀ lọ́fíìsì yín. Ibi tọ́fíìsì yín bá wà, òun ni kẹ́ ẹ sọ.
I'm not quite sure what that video where that is. Or, you know, how we are faring as a
Lagos State has made clarifications on that video since it went viral. Let me just read it quickly. The clarification followed the viral video. The State Ministry of Housing actually said that permits and administrative fees for installing solar power systems apply only to residents of its social housing estates, not to private homeowners across the state. So social housing estates must ensure that they get permits and administrative fees. They said the reason is because they don't want a situation whereby you fix a wrong solar, it's going to burn the state's, the government's property and so on. But another question comes up.
It's for the state. So
a social housing estate belongs to
yes,
Lagos government, not individual.
Belonging to government.
Belonging to government. People are worried that now so they take start.
Yeah, that's how it starts.
That you start from there, you now come to
white and khaki.
White and khaki.
Yeah,
and again,
there's so many uniforms in Lagos that nobody knows who they are.
And since when is it that we've become more reactionary? Because we're expecting that there would have been a circular a press release that would have gone round to inform the public that, listen, from so date, there's an agency of government that would go round, especially to social houses that belong to government, to enact this particular, educate that. Listen, the biggest question, guys, is what if I end up paying the administrative fee? Would that stop fire from burning if the solar eventually decides to be engulfed by fire?
No, I don't think so. And this idea of revenue first, which is now the mantra in Nigeria, and it's been the mantra for quite a while now. First is about revenue. And I'll give you an example. Since Saturday, I couldn't drive out of the house because my vehicle license expired on Sunday. And last week, I tried to do it. They said, oh, the servers are down. It was down on Thursday, it was down on Friday. Are you with me? So my brother sends me something. So I send it to them on Saturday, no answer. And then on Monday, the person asked me. And then I send a message back, so it's this amount, blah, blah, blah. But it's going to take 24 to 48 hours. And I'm wondering. So I only got my vehicle license on Wednesday.
Wow.
Wednesday.
On Tuesday evening. From when I made a payment on Monday because the servers were down. How is this how? But you want your money, but you don't want to deliver service, which is typical, has become the typical Nigerian setup. Pay now, no service delivery.
What about the driver's license?
Complain, I don't even want to go there. And
that's a different ball game.
No, but this is a vehicle license that I should be able to go online
and renew
it, and then just get a copy that comes to me, and I print it, and it's in your register, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
I do my insurance. I don't go to.
Oh yeah, I don't bother. I don't
exactly. I make the payment. They send me the final document, and then I print it and I put it inside the car. It's not like before that they will give you the card. So why can't the states? But you won't collect money because if I had driven out and then the camera catches me, it's 20,000. When it's time for me to do my vehicle MOT, I have to pay. And I've told I will not pay to any state government or any federal government for the things I'm meant to do. I would rather just.
Why is you parked?
Right.
I parked the car.
Maybe next time when you park, what if they now come to your compound and snap your car?
Oh,
they did that
that's
one.
What they do.
And that's why I said they did that one. It expires on the 19th. I was going to renew it on that 19th. They took the image in 2 different places. I had to pay 40,000. When I complained, say I expired on the 19th. 19th, the end. If this was, they took those images at, one was at 10 a.m. when I was going to the, to go and do the registration. And then one was in the evening when I was coming back.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Anyway, I know it's just funny, like you said. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Always great to have you. Thank you to everyone who's...
The Bell of Conscience has done it.
Our virtual audience, our guests who have joined us physically and virtually, closing out and giving a very special shout out to Femi Imohai Owolabi, popularly known as the real Femi. Happy birthday and wishing you the most amazing year yet. And that's how we end the show. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Reminds of Lagbaja's song.